There are certain things you can forgive in a person. But there's one thing, one specific thing my wife did while I was 7 months into an overseas rotation that I could never talk myself out of. Not because I'm bitter, not because I haven't tried to understand, but because some things, once you really see them, can't be unseen. My name is Daniel Cross. I'm 38 years old, and this is what I came home to and what I did about it. I'd been back on American soil for exactly 3 hours. I was sitting in the back of my dad's old Ford pickup in a grocery store parking lot off the freeway, my duffel bags next to me, holding my mother while she sobbed into my shoulder. Not the homecoming I'd pictured. For 7 months I was overseas. Dust, heat, 12-hour shifts, cold coffee, phone calls that dropped at the worst moments. I had this whole image in my head of coming home. My wife Lauren at the door, a real meal, my own bed, the quiet of a normal night. Instead, I'm in a parking lot. My father, Carl, sat upright in the driver's seat, staring ahead like he was trying to solve a problem with no solution. My mother, Susan, had been asleep against the passenger window until I climbed in and woke her without meaning to. On the dashboard sat a photograph of my younger sister, Emily. Cracked frame, edges darkened by smoke. Like a saint on a broken altar. I've been in combat zones. I've seen things that stay with you, but nothing prepared me for the sight of my parents living out of a pickup truck in a grocery store parking lot. My father, Carl Bennett, 73 years old, a retired electrician with weathered hands. He and my mother, Susan, 68, have been married for 42 years. Susan worked as a church secretary her whole life, the kind of woman who remembered every birthday, brought meals to strangers, and spent 3 months hand-stitching a quilt for Lauren and me as a wedding gift. Lauren took it, said, "Oh, how lovely," and put it in a closet. Then there's Emily, my little sister, 23 years old when a distracted driver ran a stop sign on a wet November night and took her life in an instant. She was coming home from a late study session. She wanted to be a teacher. That was 5 years ago. My mother still keeps Emily's school portrait on the wall. Every Christmas, she sets a place at the table for her. Not for show. She just can't bring herself not to. I carried a copy of that same photo in my chest pocket during deployment, over my heart. That Tuesday night, my parents were home on Cedar Street. Same house for 37 years. On a dry summer evening, faulty wiring inside the walls finally gave out. Fire spreads fast. This is Central Texas. The wind helps everything it shouldn't. My father woke to smoke already filling the hallway. No warning. No time. He got my mother out, and they stood barefoot on the front lawn in their nightclothes, watching 3 decades disappear. They escaped with almost nothing. Their truck. And one thing, my mother grabbed Emily's photograph off the wall on her way out. Didn't think about it. Her hands just did what a mother's hands do. She made it to the yard, looked down, and there it was. Emily's face. Cracked glass. Smoke-warped frame. Safe. That detail still lives in my chest. Their insurance barely covered a fraction of the loss. Dad's savings, honest, modest, weren't built for this. They weren't helpless people. But they were hurt. They were older. The night was dark. And they had nowhere to go except one place. My house. They called Lauren on the way. No answer. Called again. Nothing. A third time. Silence. They pulled into the driveway anyway. Knocked on the door. 2 people in smoke-smelling nightclothes. No shoes. Emily's cracked photo tucked under my mother's arm. Lauren opened the door. Just stood there. Looked at them. My mother, still trying, still holding together, said, "Lauren, honey, there's been a fire. We lost the house. We're not asking to move in. We just need somewhere for a night or 2. Lauren said nothing. My father, a 73-year-old man who had never once asked anyone for anything, said quietly, "Just tonight, Lauren. That's all." She said the house wasn't set up for guests. Said she needed her space and her routine and couldn't have that disrupted. A 3-bedroom house. Then she closed the door. My father put his hand on my mother's back and walked her to the truck. He drove them to that grocery store parking lot and slept there that night. They slept in that truck for 11 days before I came home, while my wife went about her life undisturbed. I landed at a small regional airport on a Saturday morning, exhausted the way deployment exhausts you, not just tired but hollow behind the eyes, but I was home. I called Lauren. She said she couldn't wait to see me. Then I called my mother. No answer. Called my father. He picked up after 4 rings. "Hey, son." Something in those 2 words stopped me cold. I've known my father's voice for 38 years. I know every sound it makes, and underneath that careful steadiness, I heard everything he hadn't said yet. "Dad, what's wrong?" He told me about the fire. Plain. Flat. Like a report. Like if he kept his voice level enough, it wouldn't hurt. I asked where they'd been staying. He went quiet. Your mother called Lauren. Pause. Lauren said it wasn't a good time. I stood very still in baggage claim. A family walked past with a stroller. The baggage carousel turned and turned. Dad, where are you right now? Grocery store off the freeway. Stay there. I didn't go home. I didn't call Lauren. I picked up my bag, walked to my rental car, and drove straight to that parking lot. Dad was sitting upright in the driver's seat. Mom was asleep against the passenger window, hands folded. Emily's photograph was on the dashboard, facing forward like she was keeping watch. I opened the back door and sat down. I put my hand on my father's shoulder. He reached up without turning around and covered my hand with both of his. Mom woke slowly. She turned. She saw me, fresh off a plane, came straight there. She covered her mouth with both hands, and her shoulders shook without making a sound, which is somehow worse than crying out loud. I held my mother in that parking lot and thought, Lauren did this. I drove to the house. Lauren was in the living room when I walked in. She looked up from her phone and smiled. Actually smiled. Hey, you're early. I stood in the doorway and said very quietly, Where have my parents been sleeping, Lauren? The smile shifted. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like they've been in a parking lot for 11 days. She set her phone down, crossed her arms, and then she did what I wasn't prepared for. She didn't apologize. She explained. Daniel, I can't just have people move in without talking to me first. I need my space. I need my routine. I'm not a caretaker. That's not what I signed up for. One night turns into a week, turns into a month. They're my parents. I didn't start the fire. No, you just left them in a parking lot. She looked at the wall, then back at me. Then she said the line that ended my marriage. Though I didn't file for weeks. They've had their lives, Daniel. I can't be burdened with other people's problems. They're not my parents. The woman who ate my mother's peach cobbler. The woman my father walked to her car every single time, waiting until her lights disappeared. The woman who received a 3-month hand-stitched quilt and called it lovely and put it in a closet. They're not my parents. I went back to the parking lot, helped my parents collect everything they owned in the world, 2 grocery bags. I drove them to my house, set up the guest room that had never hosted a single guest in 4 years of marriage. Made chicken soup from the recipe my mother taught me when I was 12. I told them to make themselves at home. The next 10 days were a masterclass in quiet suffering. My mother woke at 5:30 every morning and tried to be invisible. She folded laundry like a surgeon. She apologized for things that needed no apology. Once, for using the bathroom. She kept Emily's photo on the nightstand, and I'd walk past the guest room at night and see the lights still on. My father said almost nothing. He sat on the back porch every morning with his coffee, jaw tight, eyes somewhere far away. Every time Lauren entered a room, that jaw tightened another degree. Lauren, meanwhile, had perfected the art of visible suffering. Loud sighs when the TV was on. Pointed comments dressed as observations. Oh, someone used the good towels. That's fine. Delivered to the ceiling while looking at no one. 3 to 4 hours a day in the bedroom with the door shut, emerging with the expression of someone enduring a disaster with extraordinary grace. She was unbearable, and my parents were working so hard not to be a burden. About a week in, I woke at 2 a.m. to find the kitchen light on. My mother was at the table in her robe, Emily's photo in front of her, coffee cold at her elbow. I sat across from her. After a while, she said softly, She would have been 29 this year. Can you imagine Emily at 29? Honestly? Terrifying, I said. She'd be running something or leading a protest. Probably both. My mother laughed, a real one. Then she touched the edge of the photograph and the laugh faded. She used to say family was the only thing worth going to war for. 3 days later, I sat Lauren down. No yelling. Yelling felt like giving her something, and I was done giving her things. I'm not asking you to be perfect, I said. But Lauren, my parents loved you, and when they had nowhere to go, you closed the door of my house on them. She started to speak. I kept going. I've looked for the version of this where I move past it. It isn't there, because I don't just know what you did. I know what it means, and I can't unknow that. So you're choosing them, she said flat. Over your wife. Over your marriage. Yeah, I said. I am. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said. But not today. I looked at her one last time. You should have just opened the door, Lauren. That's all it ever was. I filed for divorce 12 days later. I found my parents a rental on Frankfurt Avenue. Single story, a porch, a yard big enough for a garden. Nothing fancy, the kind of house that becomes a home fast when the right people live in it. I paid for it. Choosing your family sometimes has a number attached, and you pay it without blinking. My mother planted marigolds along the fence line, just like she always did. My father found a neighbor 2 doors down with a bad transmission and spent a Saturday under his truck. When I asked if the neighbor was paying him, he looked at me like I'd spoken a different language. A month later, I helped my dad hang Emily's photograph above the fireplace. New frame, simple wood, clean. We'd retired the cracked one, though my mother put it in a dresser drawer rather than throw it away. I didn't say anything. I understood. Dad stood with his hands in his pockets and said quietly, "There she is." "There she is," I said. The afternoon light came through the front window and caught the photograph at an angle, and for just a moment Emily looked almost luminous, like she'd been waiting for us to find the right wall. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. I drove to my new apartment and sat in the parking lot for a few minutes. Was I sad? Yeah. Parts of it I grieved, the early parts when I still thought I was seeing her clearly. But I thought about my mother asleep against that truck window. I thought about my father reaching back and holding my hand without turning around. No, I did not regret it. I started going to my parents' place most evenings after work. Real food. My mother's kitchen. Then my dad and I on the porch with our coffee watching the Texas sun do what only Texas sun can do. Pink first, then amber, then a deep bruised violet that looks invented. Even on your worst days, that sky insists on being beautiful. About 2 months after the divorce, Dad and I were on that porch on a Thursday evening. Coffee cooling in our hands, not saying much, both comfortable with quiet. Then Dad said, out of nowhere, with the ghost of a smile, "You know your sister would have handled all of this a lot louder than you did." I laughed, full and unguarded. She would have shown up at that parking lot with a camera crew. Live streamed the whole thing. Lauren would be famous. She would have brought signs, Dad said. Multiple signs, professionally printed. Emily never did anything halfway. Dad chuckled low and shook his head slowly. Through the screen door we could hear my mother humming while she moved around the kitchen, the particular hum of a woman doing something ordinary and being completely content in it. I leaned back in my chair. I'm 38. My marriage is over. My sister has been gone 5 years and I will miss her every day for the rest of my life. My parents rebuilt from ash and now live in a house on Frankfurt Avenue with a garden that is, if I'm honest, already the best one on the block. Some losses get lighter when you carry them long enough. Some you just carry. But on this porch, in this light, with my father beside me and my mother's voice coming through the screen door, I know exactly who I am. I know what I chose, and I'd choose it again before the question finished being asked. Here's what I want you to take from this. When the fire happened, Lauren had one moment, one door. She looked at 2 people I cherished, who loved her without reservation, without condition, without keeping score, and she closed it. That's the whole story. Everything else is just what happened because of that one closed door. Your parents won't always be strong. There will be a night, maybe there already has been, when they need you to hold things together. When they call, and try not to sound scared, standing somewhere they never imagined standing. And in that moment, you'll find out something true about yourself that you can't control.